Hi, I'm Dr. Fink, and you're watching Prophets of Rock.
Starting off, I'm very interested in how you got into music. Did you know that that was the field that you always wanted to be in growing up?
Not right away, but fairly early on in my childhood, I was very interested in music. Of course, most people who start off in music, their parents are an influence, and mine were in my case. Um, as you know, Prince's father was an artist and had his own band and all that. My parents, on the other hand, were in theater, and they both studied at the University of Minnesota and had degrees in theater. So as I was growing up, they started me out with piano lessons at the age of about 7, but they also had me involved with theatrical work at what was called the Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis, which was based in the Minneapolis Institute of Arts Museum, actually. So they had a separate wing within that called the Children's Theater. And my father was on the board of directors, and he also acted in a lot of the plays there. And later on, by the time I was about maybe 9 years old, I think, I started doing voiceover work for educational recordings. By the time I was 14, I did a radio show for the KUOM University of Minnesota radio station, which was a health topic radio show for kids. So it went out to all the schools in the Twin Cities here. And I was studying jazz, piano, and classical with a teacher. By the time I was 14, I got into the jazz side. Prior to that, had been strictly classical training, and spent a good 2 years from the time I was 18 till I was almost 21. I wasn't quite 21 when I auditioned for Prince.
So, at what age did you start working with Prince? How did that come about?
I was 20, just a few months shy of 21. I was friends with Bobby Z. He and I went to the same high school together. He was a couple years ahead of me, and our families knew each other growing up. Bobby brought Prince's demo tape to me because Bobby was working for Prince's first manager, Owen Husney. And this was the gentleman who got involved with Prince in 77, 78 and put the team together that brought Prince out to the record companies and put the demos together. And Bobby's brother David was involved in creating those demos in the studio. And so Bobby was basically an intern working for Owen, Prince's first manager. And then Bobby had the opportunity to audition for the band, and Prince brought him on board. And even before Prince had his record deal with Warner Brothers, Bobby played the tape for me, played the demos. He came out to where I was performing one evening, and
What did you think about those demos when you heard them?
I was blown away because and after I listened to them and I asked who the band was, Bobby said, well, it's not a band, it's just one guy doing everything in the studio, and he's your age. Because Prince and I are the exact same age, we're born the same year, and I just was highly impressed with Prince right off the bat, and I said, well, let me know when he's looking for a group, or if is he getting a record deal, what's the status of his career? And Bobby said they're shopping him to the labels very soon, and I'll keep you informed. But as time went on, once he did get his record deal, the band was put together, and they did have the slot for the keyboardist filled. And then when that gentleman decided not to do it early on, then the door opened up again, and I was able to call Bobby and Owen, the manager, and get an audition at that point.
The story, but how did the masks, the
the doctor persona come about?
How did you come into that?
Well, originally, I had chosen a guy wearing a black and white striped jail outfit, which I felt was kind of apropos for keyboards, since it's black and white keys, kind of a nice look, different, quirky, and Prince liked that. But as soon as we were put on tour with Rick James in late '79, we got out on the road with him, and he had this song called "Bustin' Out of L7" on his album at that time, and he would come out on stage in a breakaway jail suit, black and white, thick stripes. So Prince came to me and he said, the headline group is wearing that jail suit, and you're in a jail suit. I think you better change your image. And I said, well, okay, if you really insist. And he says, yes, I insist. So I had to come up with something else, and one of my alternate ideas was the doctor suit, which was one of the choices, but I didn't go with that one.
The tour between Prince and Rick, I'm not sure to the extent you can answer this, but was there any tension during that time? Was it like camaraderie?
Yeah, there was some
Rick and
tension
Prince?
going on there. I mean, no question. Prince we were doing quite well opening the shows. People in that position, I suppose, can get jealous. But, I mean, you shouldn't. I mean, there's no reason to be jealous. I mean, after all, he was highly successful. But yeah, there were some issues there. But the biggest problem was that Prince was very adamant about being drug-free, and for us as band members to be drug-free. He was also even to the point of not really wanting us to be drinking alcohol. And of course, Rick was all about the drug use. And so he would try to entice us as band members and Prince to use drugs at parties after the shows and things like that. So Prince was always rejecting his overtures to smoke pot and hash and drink, booze and all the rest of it. On the other hand, I like to have an occasional drink, and there were a couple times when Prince was frowning upon that, and he saw me drinking. He didn't like it.
I've read interviews where Gail has said that there were moments of being in a hotel and dressing in a kind of provocative way, either because you've got a show. Did your attire ever provoke people?
I mean, I know that Gail wasn't wild about having to do that at times, but she did it, and for me, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, her attire really predated anything Madonna ever did. I mean, it was very, it was kind of groundbreaking in a way at that time to be wearing lingerie on stage. I'm sure it's not the first time. I mean, you can go all the way back to Mae West in the movies of the 30s. I mean, she was highly provocative. Her movies in those days, before they put movie ratings or before they decided to start censorship, were highly provocative for that time frame.
What was the moment that you knew, okay, this is really big, this thing?
Well, I would say the first inklings of that were when we, Prince felt that we were ready to headline as a group on the Dirty Mind tour. This was right after the Rick James opening thing. He wanted to go right into trying to headlining and doing all that. I think it may have been a little premature at that time to try it. He tried it, and in some places we were successful, in other places no, we didn't sell enough tickets. But that's because it was early in the career. But that still gave me an inkling as to what the potential was, because there were some great shows and sold out, theaters at that time. We couldn't really fill arenas yet. Maybe get a half full arena. He attempted to get arenas going. We weren't ready, popularity wise. But then by the Controversy album, and especially 1999, that's when the 1999 tour. By then we were playing sold out shows in 14,000 seaters. So by then you knew for sure we were there. And then he, of course, felt confident enough to try to do the movie.
To what extent did you notice that MTV weren't probably playing videos too much from artists of color? Because obviously that would affect you. You're in his band.
Oh, pretty much immediately. I mean, not only that, but we knew that just regular mainstream radio was segregated at that time, and that there was one record or one radio station here in Minneapolis called KMOJ, which played black artists, and that was it. And it was a low-powered station. It only reached, just within the city confines. And Prince could get airplay on that station, but not on any of the mainstream top 40. So it really wasn't until the song 1999 broke through on MTV, A, the video, B, the song on radio, and that's when he crossed over into the mainstream pop market.
Was it an intentional effort to cross over, or was it just that it was organic because it's a pretty eclectic mix of genres that were on those?
I think it was it was intentional on his part to try to cross over. He just obviously was writing this poppier music. It was like a fusion of rock and pop. It wasn't, the song 1999's got a little funk in it. It's got some funk in there with the guitar, but musically it was very melodic and straight beat, but the guitars were telling us it still got the funk in there. So it was just this mixture of all those styles that were coming through on that album, and very innovative, very new. So it was so new, and the critics just were eating it up, that it crossed over.
We know Prince is the musical powerhouse, musical genius,
Mm-hmm.
but many argue, and I agree, that you, working with Prince, added a certain stylistic, unique point, so much so that people miss that sound from Prince.
Oh, I didn't co-write a lot of songs,
Right.
but there was like 5 or 6 I remember I have co-writes on, but usually, he would only take musical ideas for me. He never
Okay.
took like lyrical or song titles from anybody in the band. He would always latch on to a groove or some kind of chord progression, maybe at a sound check or at a rehearsal where we're just jamming. That's usually how songs were germinated from my ideas. He would latch on to something I'm just playing, something that was being improvised during a rehearsal or warm-up. Usually it was at the warm-up stage of a rehearsal before we even got down to playing actual songs. We would just jam and make stuff up on the fly, and that's where those ideas came from. And then there were times along the way when I would actually bring a finished song to him and try to, sell him on it. Hey, how about, throwing this one in there? And he would never accept those, which I understand. Maybe they weren't right, maybe he didn't like it, I don't know. He'd just say, no, that's not quite the right thing for what I'm doing. He had his own vision. That's understandable. Everybody at one time or another would try to present songs, but he after a while I gave up on that because I knew that he just wanted to do his own thing. He had his lyric ideas, and that was it, pretty much. Now, Des Dickerson, I think, wrote some lyrics for the song Cool for the time. So he accepted something from Des, but for an outside project, not within the confines of our group. So yeah, there was a certain amount of give and take there creatively. I think my influence as a keyboard player weighed on him. I think there were things he learned from me. I'm pretty sure of that. I showed him some things I knew, and I learned things from him. It was very reciprocal, technically speaking, as players. Same with Lisa and Gail. And then later on, Bonnie Boyer was in the group, and Rosie Gaines. But the Lisa was to me a highly trained technical player, and very good at conveying new ideas to Prince. And her and Wendy were a big influence on Prince as well, and on his writing.